Welcome to the Coffee Snobs Podcast, where we just really love good coffee.
So grab your cup of coffee and join us each episode as we explore any and everything coffee related.
From pour-overs to lattes to the coffee experience. We explore it all because life is too short to drink bad coffee. Here we go.
Welcome back to another episode 7 of the Coffee Snobs Podcast. My name is Tyler Dancy. I'm joined by
Aaron Beaver.
And we are a duo this evening, this afternoon, this morning, whatever. Mr. Chad Lingafelt is a man about town. He has been busy. We've all been kind of busy with some hectic schedules.
It's all been crazy. I mean, you just came back from vacation.
Correct.
And we're just going to jump right into it. So I want to hear this story because we get a photo of the largest can of Maxwell coffee I have ever seen. If you remember back in one of the previous episodes, Tyler talks about Al, his father-in-law, and this nasty coffee. Tell me about the vacation coffee.
So poor me. I've been at the beach for a week. We went down to a North Carolina coastal area, and my father-in-law, love him, bless him, the first thing he unpacks is a giant, like 2-pound plastic blue tub of Maxwell House coffee, good to the last drop. And I think it was probably like $9 for 2 pounds of this. So,
garbage.
Now, on the other side of that, obviously, me and my wife brought a pour-over setup. We have a kettle and all that good stuff for the week. And but something you'll probably experience at most hotels, the only coffee making device that was at our rental house was a drip coffee maker, which is what a lot of people are used to.
Which that ties into what we're talking about today. We're talking about drip coffee.
So real quick, let me go back to the beginning. Episode 7, does drip coffee get a bad rap? So as I was saying, the only coffee maker at the house we were staying at was a drip coffee pot, and my father-in-law, every morning he makes a giant batch of coffee, just kind of scoops in 7, 8, whatever, and that's his thing. So that's fine. But it required, each morning I would get up and make pour over for myself and my wife. My father-in-law, my brother-in-law, they drink coffee, but they're just kind of
Right. So they're with a drip machine using Maxwell, like just pouring scoops and scoops of coffee and just pouring water in. No measuring.
No
just
rhyme or reason.
Just going. Did you take a taste? Did you taste it?
I did not, which is I probably should have, but I really couldn't bring myself to.
Right.
But again, it kind of opened my eyes to my father-in-law, brother-in-law, great people, just kind of salt of the earth.
Yeah.
And I don't even think if I would have given them a taste of the pour over versus it had them do a taste test side by side, I don't think they really would have cared. And the coffee snob part of me is kind of sad about that, but at the same time, it's like, well, that's fine. Different strokes for different folks.
I mean, that's unfortunate, but I think that's majority of people that drink coffee. They don't care. Like, honestly, like if it's garbage,
it's hot garbage.
Literally, it's warm, and I think it's warm, and it gets me going in the morning. I think that's a lot of their.
And my brother-in-law had bought the store brand Dunkin' Donuts creamer.
Yep.
Which, again, that's fine. And his job requires him to get up early every morning.
Yep.
So I think he actually had tried to get off coffee a couple months back. I don't know what he was drinking in the mornings, probably Red Bulls or something. But through whatever circumstances, he's drinking coffee again. And for him, it's just like, I get up, I make a giant pot of coffee, put it in my thermos, put some Dunkin' Donuts creamer, and I'm out the door.
Out the door.
And like I said, if that's what he enjoys, that's fine.
Yeah.
But like I said, so my wife and I were basically the only quote unquote coffee snobs in the house. So we made pour overs and it was fine. But man, I really missed my espresso.
What did you take on vacation? What was your vacation coffee setup?
Vacation setup was super simple. It was just the kettle, the scale we use at home. Didn't want to bring our larger Chemex just for didn't want to have anything happen to it. So I've got a Bodum pour over. It's a simple carafe, pretty cheap and inexpensive. It gets the job done. And the night before we left, rather than bringing my hand grinder and all that, I just took a fresh bag of coffee, pretty much ground up the 12 ounces of coffee. And we only drank a cup in the morning. So that lasted us for the week, pretty much, just 2 people.
Sweet.
So...
Well, that was coffee. That was Tyler's coffee travel setup. I went to vacation the week before you did. Took my grinder and took 5 bags of coffee, 5 actual pounds of different coffee, because I had so many people in our family that do drink coffee, and my parents and sister, they do enjoy a good cup of coffee. So you were doing the coffee duties all week? Yeah, I did coffee duties all week, and after there was a Keurig in the house, and so they did bring K cups, and so if I was not, if I'd already made coffee or something, they would get a K cup and pop it in and go. And
what kind of K cups?
They had the breakfast blend, I think, is what they brought, like a big
generic box
of breakfast blend, But we also did. I did drip coffee one day. We'll talk about that a little later in the show. But that was fun. So, but I have made it to some really cool coffee shops here lately, and one of the locals that I really enjoy is Enderly, and they're in Charlotte, and they did a 2-bag, 2 different processes. And 1 lot, and it all came from 1 farm. So it was 1 farm, 2 different beans, and they actually processed them, had different processes. And I've got them with me in front of me. It's a Costa Rica, and we have a natural process and a honey processed. And so it is the same identical lot, just the bean or the cherry was done in a different process. So as one of our other podcasts, you can go back and hear the different processes, but literally they have 2 of the same coffees, cherries, done a different process, and so you can kind of taste them. And so it come from the same lot.
What's the results?
I really, really enjoy them. And honestly, the natural to me is, I enjoy the natural a lot better.
No, and these are a light roast, or this says medium light?
Medium light, okay. Yeah. It's still very, it doesn't taste like a traditional coffee bean. I mean, it tastes really good. It's very fruity. And then also, while I was there, Enderly did a meetup with the Raleigh Coffee Company, or actually exchange, and they were carrying some of the Raleigh Coffee Company, a blend, an Ethiopian natural and a Colombian. And it is really, really, really good. Thank you so much, Enderly, for the Raleigh Coffee Company bag. Really, really have enjoyed it. I've been drinking a lot of coffee here lately because I still have, I think I got like 7 pounds of coffee I got to drink. And I've recently sold my Breville espresso machine.
What? You sold your espresso machine?
I'm upgrading. Wow. I'm upgrading.
Okay.
There's another one coming at a new time, and hopefully sooner than later.
We'll have to hear all about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I don't want to let it out quite yet, but it's gonna be nice. Cool. Yeah. So let's get into today's
topic. So we've had several listeners reach out. Thank you for reaching out.
Yeah,
and saying that they've been listening to the podcast, kind of enjoying things, but they're at the beginning of maybe their coffee journey. They're doing drip coffee, and they're interested, haven't quite, made the plunge into pour overs or whatever. So I guess we just started thinking about, there's nothing wrong with drip coffee. I mean, it's served nationwide every day.
Right.
It's not maybe the process that you or I, Aaron, do very often at our homes.
Yeah.
But we were wondering, does drip coffee get a bad rap? And maybe what are some simple things to do to make a better pot of drip coffee?
So one of the things in drip coffee that I don't think a lot of people understand, or maybe don't realize, is most coffee shops, even boutique coffee shops, they have a drip process in the back.
So actually, just make sure we're all on the same page. Let's take it even a step further back.
Yep.
Drip coffee. When we say drip coffee, just so we're all clear, what do we mean?
So it could be as something as simple as a water kettle on a machine, okay, like a Mr. Coffee. If you don't know what that is, machine. Next time you're in Food Lion or a grocery store of any sort, they sell Mr. Coffee machines. So literally, it is a glass kettle on a heating
carafe, maybe more.
No, call it a glass jug. We'll say a glass jug, and literally, it's on a heating pad or a heating plate. Yep. And you put water in the back of the machine. You fill it up. You put a coffee filter. Most of the time, they're round, ruffled. You put it in. You place your coffee in it, and then water is dripped down from the top, from the pumped up to the top, steamed through a steaming process, and then it drips into the glass jug or whatever carafe or whatever you want to call it. That if you ever warms your coffee.
If you've ever been in line at McDonald's for breakfast and you can't help but see the coffee machines in the back because McDonald's sells a ton of drip coffee. So, okay.
So that's the drip coffee process.
It's simple. It's easy.
It's very simple and easy. And literally you can hit a button and walk away.
That's cool.
And so with that, most coffee shops have a drip coffee just ready for a customer that comes in and says, hey, I want you to fill up coffee, and I am ready to go.
Starbucks has this.
Yep, Starbucks has it. Our local area, Groundworks, they have it, and I think they changed up their drip coffee here recently.
Yes,
to a different. What were they using? Do you remember off the top of your head?
Methodical, which is out of Greenville, South Carolina, is a roaster that Groundworks has been using a lot lately.
Yeah, and so. Their drip coffee is really, really good. Sunnergross has phenomenal drip coffee. That's one of the things that I do remember because when I was there, I was drinking a lot of drip coffee. I wasn't ordering like lattes or anything like that. It was a lot more drip coffee than it was really anything. And so dialing in a drip coffee is very similar to a pour over process.
Okay.
I think it can be a little... The pour over process goes to a little more snobbish, right? You got your kettle, you're heating it to a certain temp. But in the, I think the infusion process in a drip machine is what separates it from a pour over.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is the water that's pumped out of the filter or out of the jug in the back, and the way it's dispersed over the top is not. It's pretty much consistent. Once it heats up and builds enough pressure, it starts pumping water over the coffee grinds through the filter and then starts dripping into the jug.
Okay.
And so when you do a pour over, you start with a certain amount of grams of water to get the blooming process.
Yep.
Hold off a second, and then you start pouring a little different. That doesn't happen in a drip machine.
Sure. Pour over is the slower process.
Correct.
It could take 3 to 4 or 5 minutes for a larger pot, whereas drip is, like you said, hit a button and
so when you're doing drip and you're doing a small batch of coffee, normally drip is 10 cups of coffee, I think is the max on most machines. So think about that. If 8 ounces of water is a cup of coffee, right? That's 80 ounces of water in the back jug. Now,
how much is in a gallon? 96.
Yeah,
the metric system does me in again.
But I mean, so that's the difference is if you're doing a small batch, like 1 or 2 cups, a lot of times putting grinds in that filter system, you won't completely fill the bottom of the water. You won't completely fill the bottom of the filter, and so water could actually pass through the filter and not hit the coffee. So for me, at the beach, I actually used a drip machine 2 days in a row.
Okay.
And so what I did is I would actually weigh out my water and I would weigh out my coffee grinds. And so I literally was doing the exact same process for a pour over that I did for the drip machine that I would do for a pour over.
Okay.
I was yielding pretty good results.
Okay.
And yes, were there some inconsistencies? Yes. Sure. Could I tell a difference? Could the people that I was serving it to tell a difference? I don't think so.
Maybe. So would you say one benefit maybe of drip coffee is that it's easier to make larger volumes than pour overs?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
It is much easier to do larger volumes, and there are better drip machines And there are a lot of drip machines out now emulating the pour over process.
I've heard of those. Haven't really got a chance to play with
recently I was in a boutique electronic shop, and they had Nesquik. I think maybe it was one of those brands, but it literally is a water jug on one side, like a water kettle on one side, and then a pour over process on the other. And it does it automated. Like, I mean,
I've seen some of those. I think they're kind of pricey.
They're very pricey.
A couple $100.
They're very pricey.
Like, whoa.
So, and so if you're starting on your coffee journey and you want to, how can I dial in my
what's the easiest and cheapest way if you're using a drip setup currently, Aaron, to make better coffee?
Well, I think we always lead off with the first thing is get fresh coffee. Like that in my opinion is the easiest way to step your coffee game up. So fresh bag of coffee, ground accurately.
So that's like a coarse grind.
Coarse grind.
Could you use the similar grind with a pour over and a drip coffee?
Yes, you could.
Okay.
Yeah. And then one thing that I would do, I would weigh out my water and weigh out my coffee.
Okay.
So find out whatever you're doing. If you're doing 4 cups, 5 cups, whatever you're doing, just match the grinds to water ratio that we talked about in multiple podcasts. We always talk about that, but and
except
then
for
one
Chad,
of the things,
he just kind of guesses.
Yeah. Then one of the things that I would do is pre-wet the filter.
Pre-wet
the filter, and here's the reason why. I've been recently doing this. You wash out any of the chemicals that were in the filter.
In the paper process.
Okay. And so what I do is I'll wet and I'll run probably too much water through mine. Like I'll completely fill up my pour over setup and allow a ton of water to go through it.
Okay.
But that's kind of like a little, I want to be a little more snob.
Yeah.
Wet that paper filter. And so, I mean, Tyler, is there anything that you would think to, there are a few things in the drip process. You got to remember that heating element is on the bottom. So if your coffee's getting low, don't let it stay on there forever.
Yeah, don't do the leave coffee from the morning and then go back at 2 PM and drink it.
Right.
It's been just sitting there, just basically
boiling
and melting all day. So what Aaron's talking about, probably the simplest, cheapest thing.
Yeah.
Let's say you've got a drip coffee maker at home. You're just buying pre-ground coffee. You can go to Amazon.com and you can get a scale that will weigh out in grams for like $10 or less. And you can find a grinder probably in the $20 range. Now, is it a great one? No, but I mean, $20 to $30 of investment. And I would challenge maybe you, some of the listeners who are still doing drip, take your existing coffee you've been using and get a better coffee.
Yeah.
And do a side-by-side comparison. Do a pot of your Folgers or whatever it is you're using, or your Starbucks that you bought at the grocery store. And, get a fresher bag and see if that is a noticeable difference to you.
Yeah.
So
I think if all you did was you said, "Hey, Aaron, I don't want to buy a $15 bag of coffee. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm going to buy my $9 2-pound Maxwell jug." I would say if that's where you're at and you want a better cup of coffee, at least weigh and get a good coffee to water ratio, and then start there. Because honestly, like, if you just buy a good bag of coffee and you are not paying attention to the ratio, I mean, you're still going to get crap. It's either going to be it's going to taste like water, it's going to taste really light
or really strong,
or it's going to be just really strong. And you can still get, I mean, there's people that like strong coffee. So if we say a 18-to-1 ratio or a 16.5-to-1, you may find out like 14 or 13-to-1 ratio is where you like it, because you like it, a little more bite to it, a little more punch. And if that's why you like it, great. Currently at this moment, I'm a strict 18-to-1, and I am sticking very.
So let me ask you this real quick.
Ethiopian is my jam. Like,
you like that?
Yes.
Stuff. Is the ratio the same for drip versus pour over? Generally,
honestly, I can't answer that like in full detail, but I use the same. I've found that that's a great starting point. If it tastes bad, if it tastes bitter, I'll go with a little less coffee in that ratio. But that's normally how I do it, is like I'll at least start with the knowledge that I know and start with a 16.5 to 1, because that to me is a solid starting point in any coffee process. And then, let me say this, in a pour over or drip or French press is different, but that's where I would start, and and kind of go from there. And so get a cheap scale, get fresh coffee, and try it.
Yeah. Like, so for instance, this reminded me of the beach. My brother-in-law was asking my father, how many scoops are you putting in there? He's like, 7 or 8. So let's say you're doing drip coffee and you're making however many cups of coffee you're making.
Yep.
If you're using 5 scoops, get your 5 scoops out and weigh that, see how many grams that is. And even if you don't want to be that accurate, say, okay, maybe this tastes a little too watery. You're going to add a 6th scoop.
Yep.
Find whatever ratio you enjoy.
Yep.
And if you want to be able to reproduce that, because again, we talked in earlier episodes, your scoop can vary. You know, one scoop can be 8 grams of coffee, another one could be 12.
Mm-hmm.
Find out what tastes good to you. And even if you only have a $9 or $10, cheap little scale, find out how many grams that is to how much water.
Yep.
So you can reproduce that and make an enjoyable cup consistently.
Yeah. So one of the things that I have done is scooping, and the density of coffee that is already ground can vary quite a bit. So if that makes sense,
coming in,
the coffee that is ground, once it's ground and you scoop it, the density of that in that scoop can drastically change. You can pack it tighter or it can be looser. Mm-hmm. But I found that beans, it's a lot harder to get it to be all over the place. So if you were to scoop out your beans prior to grinding them, you can get a much more accurate scoop. Now, I don't still recommend that, but like if you find out that, 1 cup of beans is blah, blah, blah grams, then you can pretty much replicate that, because it's kind of harder. I mean, the bean variation is not, that all over the place. So it may change like 1 or 2 grams, but it's not going to change a lot.
Okay.
And yes, I know the coffee snobs, like I'm hard on the numbers, but if you're wanting to replicate a process, you could probably get a little bit better by not grinding the beans, weighing the beans pre-ground, and you could probably be a little more accurate in your just automated, like your non-weighing every morning process. I don't recommend it. I'm not going to put my seal of approval on it, but you could do it if you wanted to.
Better than nothing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's better than nothing. But
okay. Well, so
we all got to start somewhere.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere. And like I said, we've enjoyed hearing from several of the listeners.
Yeah,
that you're starting your journey. So hopefully this give you something to think about as far as drip. And another benefit I just thought about to drip, if you enjoy that, is that it's generally going to be a good bit cheaper. As far as if you go to a Starbucks and say, hey, I want a large coffee, it's going to be maybe $2, something like that.
I think a current cup of Starbucks is $2.79.
I don't go, but I mean, but that's definitely going to be cheaper than a latte or a pour over, different things. So that's just one economical aspect
and if you ever get a chance and you're at a coffee shop and you want to try, get a pour over and then get drip coffee and put them side by side.
Sure.
They should, depending on what bean is coming out of both of them, but it's a good taste to see. If you don't have the equipment, instead of making an investment, you have a drip machine, but you don't have a pour over, go to a coffee shop, order both, and see which one you like the best.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, and that's a good starting point. So listeners, hopefully this has helped a little bit. If you still have any questions or, want us to cover something in more detail, please reach out to us. We're on Instagram at Coffee Snobs Podcast. You can email us at hello@coffeesnobs.net. or however else you want to reach out to any of us individually. But like I said, we like hearing from you guys, and we want to, record future episodes that are both fun for us, but also, useful for you guys. So please reach out to us and let us know whether you thought this episode was trash or helpful or whatever. So look in the show notes, whatever method you use to listen to this podcast, and we will put a few links to just a very cheap, but decent, maybe a scale grind or something like that you can purchase from Amazon. We don't get anything out of that. There's no affiliate links or anything like that. But if you have any questions as far as type of equipment to buy, please reach out. And that's about it for now. So
real quick before we exit, before we end, we got some really cool shows coming up. Really cool episodes. We have been in talks with Sugar Creek Roaster, as well as Enderly.
Okay.
Tony he runs it and roast, and so he told us that he would talk with us.
Okay.
Been connecting with a guy on social media. Aaron Makes Coffee.
Aaron,
super cool guy.
A-A-R-I-N.
It's A-A-R-R-O-N. Makes Coffee. Very, very cool guy to follow. He makes some really, really good coffee and gives really good advice in his Instagram stories. So if you get a chance, follow him. We got a lot of stuff in the works.
We got some good interviews coming up, and that's about it for now.
Yep.
So signing off for now. My name's Tyler again. If you want to find me for whatever godforsaken reason on social media, my handle is Dancy, Tydancy.
And if you want to locate me, you can find me at Area 51 here recently. No, I'm just kidding.
Did you just storm that?
No. You can find me at AARONBEAVER on the Instagram.
And in his absence, I guess we'll...
Yeah. You can... it's actually what? lockdot.net/connect. I think is what he says. He's got 17
ways to reach him. I don't know. His name's Chad.
Or you can Instagram...
You don't have many people named Lingafelt. Like... What origin is that?
Lockdot.net/connect.
Lockdoc, LOC.
DOC.
So drop the K.
Yep.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening to episode 7. Until next time, we will see you again soon. Signing off.
Adios.